With the last episode becoming such a scenic detour, I had to continue the journey, get us all the way home. So if you haven't heard the first episode, Sokar, the Hidden Onion, the link will be in the description. As a very quick description of that, I present Sokar Familial Ties, the oldest description of his festival to the latest description found, and his changing artistic depiction throughout time. If you're wondering what I could possibly fill this episode with, we haven't even gotten to the myths yet, or anything about the Stargate villain. I mean, what is this series even for, if not Stargate? Since we have a lot to cover, let's just get started. My name is Renee, you're listening to Detours in Archaeology, and this is Sokar Part 2, The Sands of the Underworld.
Getting to direct myths now. Or at least as close as we get. In the pyramid text, Sokar is primarily associated with the roles involving purification, transformation, and protection of the deceased king, highlighting specific instances. The vehicle of transformation, where Horus is lifting Osiris, is compared to the Henu bark carrying Sokar. It also mentions spirit creation, noting that Horus created the spirit of his father as Ha, Min, and Sokar. Sokar is explicitly connected to purification, responsible for purifying the dead. As a celestial ferryman, the deceased requests Thoth to be ferried on the tip of his wing as, quote, Sokar presides over the bark of righteousness, unquote. The ennoblement role is evident when the Watchers of Nekhen are described as ennobling the deceased as Sokar. Finally, in The Breaking of the Egg, Sokar uses a self-made harpoon to break open the egg containing the uniformed king, allowing him to ascend to the sky. In the ancient Egyptian coffin texts, especially in Volume 1, spells 1 to 354, highlight Sokar as a vital funerary deity whose presence is intricately woven into spells crafted to protect, purify, and transform the deceased into a blessed spirit, known as an Ak. The process begins with a purification and ritual transformation, where Sokar is often invoked to perform the essential cleansing of the deceased. This purification is crucial for enabling the soul's entry into the sacred regions of the afterlife. Following this, the spells focus on transforming the deceased into an Ak, or ennobled spirit. By being identified with Sokar, the deceased acquires the god's power to transcend the physical tomb and ascend towards the celestial realm. Sokar's association with the necropolis and the underworld is also prominent, which is when he's famously titled He of Rasatau, referring to the openings or pathways into the underworld. Spells within this volume guide the deceased through these perilous subterranean regions believed to be filled with traps and snares. Additionally, Sokar's role extends to Memphis, where he is the primary deity of the burial grounds. Here, he provides localized protection for those buried in wooden coffins, reinforcing his guardianship over the dead. It also mentions Sokar's vessels, which further emphasize Sokar's mythos, the Henu bark, the characteristic boat in festival processions, as a reoccurring symbol, the characteristic boat used in funerary processions. Skipping forward to Volume 3, spells 788 to 1185, Sokar is a pretty important god when it comes to death stuff. He's all about the cleaning, helping souls transition, and helping keep the dead safe. People often call Sokar to purify the dead, which was also discussed earlier, and keep the evil spirits away from them in the afterlife. That's from the last one. It is specifically in spell 669, nice, that Sokar is described using a harpoon to break open an egg containing the uniformed king so he can fly to the sky and become immortal. This text also reflects the trend of syncretism, wherein Sokar is merged with Ptah and Osiris. While Volume 1 contains many distinct spells, this combination signifies the integration of different divine aspects intended to aid the deceased on their journey and in the afterlife. from the Hymn to Osiris Sokar,
one of the Isis temple chants.
the mentions that I found of the excess use of fear in Stargate may have come from the Hymn to Osiris Sokar. Isis temple chants or liturgies such as the Burden of Isis, which contains the following lines. Hymn to Osiris Sokar, formulae for the bringing in of Osiris Sokar in connection with the mysteries spoken heretofore. And, behold the Lord of Fear, who causeth him to come into being. And, addressed to Osiris Sokar himself, Hail, Royal One, coming forth in the body.
Connecting to the resurrection power Sokar brings, and Osiris coming back to, well, not total death, but not really life either.
I mean, translated, sounds kind of funky. But it seems like Osiris Sokar, being known as the Lord of Fear who causes himself to come into being, had to be a later idea, especially since Sokar had already been syncretized with Osiris. Sokar is considered one of the oldest Egyptian gods, in other versions having been merged with both Ra and Osiris. Besides his primal traits, he is also seen as the Mysterious One, a figure unknown to mankind and a hidden god. Other gods in this hidden category include Amon and Neith. Sokar's reputation mainly centers on being the Lord of Fear, highlighting his role in invoking awe and fear among the Egyptian pantheon and worshippers.
The soul.
An egg myth, often called the Chaos Egg myth, is an ancient and enduring belief related to the creation of the world and the transmigration of souls. In the myth's depiction of creation, the Chaos Egg appears in many forms. One version describes the sun god emerging as a shining egg floating atop the primordial waters known as Nu. Another variation identifies the sun as an egg laid down by the chaos goose, referred to as the Great Crackler, which is said to have cracked loudly at the dawn of time. In some traditions, particularly at Heliopolis, the egg was shaped by artisan gods like Ta or
either Knumu or Knum.
The myth also emphasizes the idea that deities or other beings can conceal their souls or essences within an egg or other objects to ensure their continued existence or transformation. The souls of gods such as Ra, Ta, and Knumu are believed to reside within the chaos egg, a motif also found in Hindu and Chinese mythology. For instance, Osiris is described as hiding his essence within the shrine of Amon. His manifestations, such as a tree, the Apis bowl, a boar, and a goose, are considered different stages or vessels for his soul. And the Apis bowl will come back in the Osiris myth, or the Osiris episode. The myth is illustrated in the story of Anpu and Bata, where Bata hides his soul in various forms, a blossom, a bowl, and a tree, before being reborn as the husband of his mother. Comparisons have also been drawn between these Egyptian beliefs and European folklore, in which a giant conceals his soul in an egg housed within a series of animals, such as a duck, within a fish, and within a deer. This also makes me think a little bit of Voldemort in Harry Potter with the Horcrux. Splitting of soul. But this version isn't evil. This myth also sheds light on why certain gods are viewed as hidden or mysterious. Deities such as Amon, Sokar, and Neith are associated with this concept of a concealed internal soul. Even in later religious texts, such as the hymn to the sun disk, Aten, during the reign of Akhenaten, the air of life is depicted as residing within the egg, demonstrating the persistence of this mythological theme. But what's so interesting about Sokar by himself is that he doesn't have an equivalent in any other culture of or around this period. He's singularly Egyptian. This does make sense because he is the god of the mummified and the guardian of gates, which are pretty individually specialized aspects in Egyptian culture. But even Anubis, as the god of mummification, was syncretized with the god Hermes, though this could have also been a consequence of their shared role as psychopomps, those who guide souls to the afterlife. In some ways, Sokar does guide souls, but he doesn't really guide. He's just kind of there guarding the gates. He doesn't get a whole death myth that I know of. And he's the personification of the physical part of the body and its possibility for resurrection, which appears at the end of the 5th hour of night. Some academics will compare Sokar with Hades or Pluto, the Greek/Roman god of the underworld, which could work, but Hades is often syncretized with Osiris since he is the lord of the underworld, even though Osiris is equated with Dionysus by Plutarch and Herodotus explicitly in their writings, because the gods shared roles of vegetation, wine, death, and rebirth, as well as the similar mythologies of being dismembered and resurrected. Herodotus, in particular, identified the Egyptian god Osiris as the Greek Dionysus, stating, Osiris is, in the Greek language, Dionysus. This identification highlights the Greco-Roman syncretism of the 5th century BCE. Poor Sokar. But because the real treasure is the friends we've made along the way, Sokar was bundled up with Ta for a while, starting in the Middle Kingdom. Then whoever decided these things added Osiris
in possibly the New Kingdom and definitely in the late periods
after 1000 BCE. In other words, Sokar's identity was ultimately merged with other major deities to form the triad Ta, Sokar, Osiris that I've talked about a bit already. This composite god symbolized the complete cycle of the soul, which Ta represented creation and stability as the creator god of Memphis, Sokar embodying death, burial, and the mastery of the necropolis as the patron of the Nephrite necropolis, and Osiris signifying rebirth and the final judgment of the dead as the chief god of the afterlife and ruler of the underworld and rebirth god. Popular in funerary context from 1000 BCE onward, this composite deity represents the complete cycle, often depicted in mummy-like figures placed in tombs for rebirth in the afterlife. The statuette of the god symbolizes creation, Ta, the arduous journey through the underworld, Sokar, and the promise of eternal life, Osiris, for the mummy as sort of a protective blessing. The ancient Egyptian belief shows the cycle of life as a representation of the spark of creation, death, and the rebirth. These figures, often hollow, held mummified offerings or texts that acted as coffins for the dead's journey to the afterlife. The Memphite cult, especially in Memphis, focused on this trio and also combined Sokar and Osiris into one god for funerals. Sokar was important in the underworld journey, guiding the sun god Ra and is guarding him from chaos. Weirdly, also sounds like a psychopomp. Whatever. Then linked to Ta's creative power that brings new life. The combined form was depicted as the slender mummified figure, often with the head of Sokar, the hawk, or a human face. He wears a crown of Osiris, the Apep crown, or Ta's skull cap, often with ram's horns and a sun disk. The body may also feature Osiris figures or inscriptions detailing spells for the afterlife. Examples of these statuettes are often linen-wrapped corn mummies placed inside the hollow mummiform figure to represent the agricultural image of rebirth in the afterlife. The body of the actual god, therefore, is supposed to function as a coffin in itself. But even with his new triple god status, Sokar wasn't one that other cultures, not even with the earlier cultures of the Phoenicians, Babylonians, etc., or later with the Greeks or Romans, even bothered to sink. So good news, his myth is pretty stable, if seemingly shallow. The Duat, moving to the straight-up funerary text, meaning that which is in the netherworld, is also known as the Book of the Hidden Chamber. It is a funerary text that describes Ra's journey of renewal. The other main text is the Book of Gates. These two texts differ as they give separate descriptions of Ra's passage through the 12 hours of night during Egypt's New Kingdom period, serving as guides throughout the Duat, or the Underworld. The Duat focuses on time, highlighting hours in hidden chambers, while the Book of Gates emphasizes space, featuring named gates or pylons guarded by serpents, which require specific knowledge to pass. The Book of Gates
Also,
often depicts the judgment of the dead and includes different peoples. So think of the Duat as a journey through time and regions, and of Gates as a journey through the protected portals in space. The Duat, or what is done in the Underworld, centering on the hidden chambers and the progression of time over 12 hours, has its structure in 3 horizontal sections, top, middle, and bottom, each with vertical columns representing 1 hour. Important themes include the sun's journey through the 12 regions, with a focus on transformation and the Underworld's hidden aspects. The Gate Book follows the name and talks about the physical gates or pylons that separate times or regions. It explains the dangers involved and what you need to know to get through them. The structure is still based on the 12 hours, each with its own named gate, guarded by snakes and gods, especially along the banks of the Underworld River.
the river of either the mirrored Nile or what's called the River of Night.
It also shows how the dead are judged in later hours. It divides people into 4 groups: Reth, Egyptians; Amu, Asiatics; Nessi, Nubians; and Temehu, Libyans, and gives instructions on the offerings needed to pass each gate. It's not an exact map for people who died in later kingdoms, because that's when the pharaohs and super rich people were painted or carved into the stories on their tomb walls and coffins, along with Ra on his bark. But its main aim is to provide a description of the underworld so that the deceased, as well as the living, can become familiar with what is to expect when their journey into the afterlife begins. Out of the 12 hours, Sokar appears, at least his land that is being traveled through, in 2 back-to-back hours. He's got a lot of land. The domain of Sokar was believed to be deep in the underworld, really the deepest. It is mentioned in the 4th and 5th hours of the Duat, which decorated several royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings and also appeared on later papyri. In the 4th hour, Ra arrives at the Imhet, or the desert of Rosetau, meaning act of towing. The desolate, dark, and bone-dry desert of Sokar is guarded by snakes, with the ground also littered by more snakes. Thoth and Sokar protect the sun god as he makes his slow progress through the desert. Owing to the name of the region, the bark is being towed by either 4 gods or representations of the 4 groups of people that the dead were divided into: Egyptians, Libyans, Nubians, and Asiatics. By this stage, it's so far into the Duat that there is no light. Descriptions state that the sun god has penetrated so far into the underworld and has moved so far away from his own light that he cannot see, relying solely on his voice to navigate himself and his crew out of the darkness. However, in some versions in which Ra is already dead, or at least sleeping, and with no water to cross, his solar bark transforms into a double-headed fire-breathing serpent, pulling double duty, using its own sense to see, in so many words, as Ra's only means to cross this pitch-black desert. This hour stands out visibly from the others, featuring a large sand path that zigzags through all 3 levels connecting them, yet making Ra's journey difficult due to multiple doors along the way. In hour 5, the land of Sokar continues, as does the serpent bark. The literal serpent bark. In this hour, 14 deities, 7 gods and 7 goddesses, representing the days of the lunar month, tow the boat. Well, the snake. This is the region of opposites. seen in the waters of Noon, which are uniting with the desert lands of Sokar. Osiris's burial mound is depicted at the top register, with Khepri crawling out, symbolizing the eventual rebirth of Ra, which begins with the recovery of Osiris's body. There is a narrow passageway being attempted to get through, promoting all of the friendly beings of this region, including the scarab representation of Khepri, to help pull the boat/snake, before crawling into Ra to revive him. Puts a new spin on the mummy scarabs. An oval representing the cavern of Sokar is present on the bottom register, with the god himself being contained in a lake of fire surrounding the cavern. As the journey reaches the end of the 5th hour, the travelers approach the secret cave of Sokar, which the sun must pass over, guarded by the Aker lions called Duat yesterday and Sefer tomorrow. This cave is a crucial point of transition and hidden power, where the sun god undergoes renewal before returning to the solar boat as a boat in the 6th hour. Inside the cave, Sokar restrains the winged serpent Apep, representing chaos, who unfortunately does pop up later. Based on these depictions, some researchers speculate that Rosetu was located near Gebel Gibli, close to the Great Pyramid, and that the tomb of Sokar, as part of an underground complex, remains undiscovered beneath the sands near the mysterious gateway in the enclosure wall known as the Wall of the Crow. But to date, there is no conclusive evidence to support or refute this theory. In these hours, or refute this hypothesis. In these hours, Sokar is often depicted in a hidden form as a falcon-headed god standing upon a winged serpent, representing the potential for resurrection even in the deepest darkness. And I just have to mention that he was called in several myths the dreaded Sokar. This plays into the fact that he was both an underworld god and a hidden god. While that doesn't automatically make him evil, it does make him mysterious. And people often fear what they don't understand. It does remind me of all the mystery cults in Greece, especially that of Dread Persephone, Hades' queen of the underworld. People often wouldn't have spoken her true name, whatever that was, out of fear of her attention being drawn to them, especially since she was a goddess of death. So they often refer to her as Kore, or maiden. While Sokar is sometimes known as a god of fear today, this may be partially explained, one, by when he was talked about as a god of fear in the Isis chants, but also by the connection just between fear and evil. Leaders tell their followers to be afraid of cults or groups that may take away their power, just as they would do later with Lucifer or Satan. Now, quick aside, before we get all the way into Stargate, it's so weird. I was wrong the entire way through the show. I was thinking that Sokar was the name, or was the crocodile god of the Nile. I know. People right now are yelling at me through your devices. That's Sobek! I was thinking, maybe the writers thought crocodile god to crocodiles to scary, Satan scary, Satan. But obviously that doesn't work at all because it's not actually Sobek. So why? I mean, they grabbed all the main gods, good or not great in some later iterations of the myths. See Seth for more information on that. But they don't even have Sobek. And he's scarier. He's a crocodile. That's destructive. But Sobek is also a god of the Nile. He's also a fertility god. So that, if they're going by actual ancient Egyptian myths, then there's a lot that is inaccurate. And Sokar, while maybe not being as well known, is a main god of the underworld, and is the main god of the underworld after being combined with Osiris and Ptah. Plus, I don't think Ptah is ever actually mentioned in the show, but he's got a long backstory on the Stargate wiki. So, this includes the ally ship that This includes the allyship that he had with Sokar, perhaps as a tip of the crown, as it were, to the original triad. In any case, huge oversight on my part. But they still did the real version so dirty, which shouldn't be surprising at this point. In the show, Sokar, played by David Palfy, who also goes on to play Anubis, is a powerful Goa'uld system lord known for his cruelty and sadism. Unlike most Goa'uld, his followers serve him mainly out of fear rather than of reverence, as he prefers to be feared rather than worshipped. Sokar first appears in Season 2, Episode 18, Serpent's Song, when his forces are attacking Earth through the gate after Apophis dies at the SGC in relative peace. After his death and that of his host, they send the body through the gate to the coordinates where he was initially retrieved. According to the Tok'ra, Sokar is believed to have recovered and revived his body, which you find out he did later, only to be repeatedly tortured, as I mentioned in my Apophis versus Apep episode. As mentioned in the episode, I really hope that the host wouldn't have been revived just to endure hell again. I'm getting way too emotionally invested in fictional characters, but I won't stop. In Season 3, Episode 8, Demons, his name is mentioned by the Unas serving as his emissary in a medieval village where he's worshipped as the devil. Could it be Satan? Yes. Also in Season 3, he also makes an appearance later in the two-part story, Jolnar's Memories and The Devil You Know, Episodes 12 and 13. SG-1 tries to rescue Jacob Carter / Selmak from his hellish moon prison, Natu. So, Sokar is a short-lived reoccurring threat after 1999 when he makes his first appearance, and appearing mostly through holograms or just references. But his influence does drive key plot lines, especially those involving the Tok'ra and Apophis's return. But going through key biographical events in his early history on Earth, when the Goa'uld first arrived on Earth, Sokar established himself as a god of death by exploiting humanity's deepest fears. He aligns himself with underworld demons, including being the biblical Satan, and initially possessed the Unas host before transitioning to a human host. Although if it was during ancient Egypt that he was doing this, Satan didn't really exist very much yet until later, the Abrahamic Judaism. Although he does exist, but
He's not really originally evil because it isn't a proper name for the devil, but a title meaning adversary or accuser from the Hebrew Bible. It refers to a role played by humans or divine beings, often as a prosecutor in heaven's court.
During the second Goa'uld dynasty, Sokar deposed Ra and took control from Memphis, echoing the origins of the real god, which, I mean, this is wiki, so that might have been put on later, I don't know. To conceal his domain, he used a device called the Sunshade to shroud the land in continuous darkness, creating an environment where Unas and monsters could roam freely. This sunshade was historically employed in the show on Earth to maintain perpetual night over Memphis, owing more to his domain and darkness in the Duat. But back in the day, Sokar's defeat and exile stemmed from a vengeful Ra who formed an alliance with Apophis and Cronus to annihilate his forces. Although believed to have been destroyed, Sokar persisted as a minor power for millennia. He eventually conquered Delmak, making it his new home planet, and terraformed its moon, Natu, transforming it into the hellish prison that reflected his mythology. By 1999, Sokar re-emerged to challenge the other system lords, launching attacks on Earth and engaging in his conflict with Hero-Ur. After a millennia in exile, he returned to attack Earth using a particle accelerator through the Stargate, initiating a series of major military and psychological assaults against both Earth and his rival system lords. The notable actions during that year included the conflict with Hero-Ur, involved in direct combat as he fought Hero-Ur while also attacking Earth. After Apophis escaped Earth and sought asylum, and eventually died, Sokar attacked Stargate Command by using the particle accelerator, connected through the Stargate to heat and damage the iris, and eventually had a hologram. This intended to force the SGC to surrender Apophis. When Apophis eventually died on Earth and his body returned, Sokar used the sarcophagus to revive and torture him repeatedly on Natu. Sokar went all out with a massive military buildup, building a fleet 10 times bigger than what the Tok'ra thought possible. His plan was to team up and strike against 6 of the main system lords so he could control the galaxy. On top of that, he managed to capture Jacob Carter and Selmak and locked them up on Natu. This move basically baited SG-1 into a rescue mission, which didn't go well for the god when Apophis rose up again, and ended with Sokar's death when the Tok'ra managed to use a weapon to mess up Natu's core. This caused a huge explosion that destroyed the moon, taking out his attack flagship while he was in orbit. Yeah, not his smartest move. As I mentioned, Sokar was known for being exceptionally sadistic and cruel, even more so than most other Goa'uld. His followers served him out of pure fear, not because they believed in him or worshipped him. He loved making people afraid of him more than anything else. He often used torture merely for his own amusement, taking pleasure in tormenting his victims and prolonging their suffering, sometimes even doing the torturing himself. He was one of the few modern Goa'uld who still used Unas as high-ranking agents and warriors, showing that he valued their strength and loyalty. Well, the Goa'uld inside them, anyway. Sokar was deeply influenced by the mythological concept of hell from Earth, and he took that idea very seriously. To reflect his obsession with darkness and torment, he transformed his worlds into nightmarish wastelands, almost like a living hell. He also adopted a demonic persona, modeling himself on underworld deities like Sokar and even the biblical Satan to enhance his terrifying image. As a ruler, Sokar was an iron-fisted despot. He never tried to reward or please his subjects. Instead, he ruled through total oppression. His people had no privacy or safety and lived under constant threat of his wrath. He was largely alone in his power with very few allies. Not even other system lords trusted him. Sokar saw others either as servants to be exploited or as enemies to be destroyed. He liked to make himself seem even more frightening by adopting a dramatic, intimidating appearance. He had pale skin and glowing red eyes and spoke in a twisted, menacing way. He often surrounded himself with flames to emphasize his role as the devil, further adding to his demonic representation and terrifying presence. There was a cult of Sokar, an intelligence and religious network founded by the Goa'uld Sokar to spy on his rivals. The cult's primary function was to serve as an espionage network, with operatives stationed throughout the galaxy to monitor the system lords. In addition to intelligence gathering, the cult also was employed for sabotage and assassinations. Members undertaking high-risk missions were often expected not to survive, viewing their participation as a sacrificial act. Communications within the networks was maintained through a chain of comrades, recording devices, and communication spheres, ensuring information ultimately reached Sokar. The cult was made up of all kinds of followers: Jaffa, humans, Unas, and at least one Goa'uld. They were super devoted, doing all sorts of strange rituals and sacrifices while worshipping Sokar's so-called demonic ways. If someone lied or reported false information, they also believed they'd face eternal damnation, which they thought was even worse than death, which it is, so yeah. The cultists also believed that once Sokar took over the galaxy, they'd get rewarded with power as his right-hand lords. It's difficult to underestimate how much art can tell us about Sokar's history. By digging into how his image has changed over time, experts can map out how Egyptian religious and social beliefs evolved. This includes looking at how modern art movements still play with these ancient themes, though it's worth noting that some scholarly links in this area are a bit loose. Today's research follows on the why and how behind Sokar's appearances in modern interpretations and shows. Essentially, You have to understand the cultural context to truly get his modern artistic significance, even if we're still waiting on more concrete evidence to back up some of these ideas. And just for fun, Sokar makes a cameo in the OG Advanced Dungeons & Dragons book, specifically the Deities and Demigods and Legends and Lores books. In this version, he's a lesser god of light who can literally blast undead away with the rays of light from his hands. He's listed as neutral good and acts as the go-to protector for Egyptian souls with that same alignment. While the game ignores his famous triple persona, his symbol, a hawk-headed mummy holding an ankh, hints at that connection anyway, but it's nice to see that he's a good guy. The themes of Sokar's portrayal evolve from a specific guardian of the dead to a complex symbol of universal cycles, while his importance to art today lies in his role as a subject for iconological analysis and modern cultural reimagining. Tracing Sokar's history shows a major shift in how he was seen and depicted. He started out as a simple hawk totem, but evolved into a mummified falcon-headed figure by the New Kingdom, often shown standing on a burial mound in full royal gear. A huge part of this change was his syncretism, where he merged with other gods to become Ta Sokar Osiris. This move turned him from a local graveyard deity to a universal symbol for the entire cycle of creation, death, and rebirth. His role also went from being purely about physical funerary rites, like the opening of the mouth ceremony, to becoming a celestial powerhouse. In later texts like the Duat, he's a main figure in the sun's nighttime journey, representing hope and life even in the pitch-black underworld. By the end of the Ptolemaic era, his look even started blending in some Hellenistic styles as Egypt began interacting more with other cultures. Sokar's legacy shows why he's still a big deal in art and academia today. Experts use his changing imagery as a roadmap to understand how ancient social and religious values shifted over thousands of years. Beyond textbooks, modern art movements can still lean on the themes to tackle deep concepts like life and transformation. Even pop culture gets into it. For example, starring SG-1 flipped his original rebirth role to turn him into a devil archetype, reflecting on our modern habit of linking the underworld gods with fear and evil. This also goes for Hades and Pluto. Ultimately, research into Sokar helps bridge the gap between the ancient rituals and the way we express those same ideas in modern exhibitions. Tracking how Sokar's image changed over time is like looking through a window into the major cultural and social shifts of ancient Egypt. He started out as a relatively simple symbol for funerals, but eventually grew into a much more complex god who represented the entire cycle of living and dying. This evolution really shows off how deep Egyptian mythology goes and how it's captured in their art. Basically, understanding these shifts doesn't just teach us about Sokar himself, it also proves how tightly connected art, daily life, and religious beliefs were throughout history. Thank you so much for listening to this episode on Sokar, the Hidden Onion. I hope you understand that title now. If you liked this, please write a review, please rate it, and leave a comment. Human engagement is the best way that more people can find my podcast in the future. Head over to the website to read about and follow along with the text of this document. See all the beautiful images that I included with it and the references at the end for all my citations. I would like to make a formal apology for my pronunciation of all the Egyptian words, most of which, in case you're not aware, are written without vowels most of the time. So I'm just trying to make an educated guess, and probably some English words as well. I swear I am trying, but I am not very good at it. If you know of any corrections or you have more information or any questions, feel free to email me directly at detoursandarchaeology@gmail.com, or you can contact me really anywhere. If you would like to support me in any monetary way, you can join my Patreon at a higher level than the free, which it is normally, or you can head over to my Printify shop where I have shirts, stickers, mugs, various other objects, and some of my works of art that I'm selling. And I'm also open for commissions. Just email me directly at detoursinarchaeology@gmail.com or hit the contact link on my website to let me know what I can do, and we can discuss options if you want anything personalized. You can also follow me on Instagram, on Blue Sky, but I recommend following this podcast and checking out their direct website. I am on the Archaeology Podcast Network, so if you are new and listening to this for the first time, welcome. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it if you've listened to all of my episodes already. All the music comes from Scott Buckley, who can be found at scottbuckley.com.au.
So this episode will come out the first week of February, and although it's not a leap year this year, I still like them. So the fun fact this week is about leap days. Generally speaking, every 4 years the month of February gets a little less short than usual when a leap day is added. Although they are something of a strange quirk, leap years have been around for millennia as kind of a temporal duct tape meant to fix the imprecise nature of the Earth's orbit around the sun, at least on our calendars. Since leap days occur only once every 1,461 days, humans have developed some strange superstitions, traditions, and even festivals around them. I have 8 facts about the origin, history, and traditions, new and old, that surround leap years. One is that leap years exist because the year isn't exactly 365 days long. Now, we all pretty much know this. When it comes to the human construction of time and the movement of our planet in the solar system, nothing lines up perfectly, and leap years are the evidence of this. It doesn't take the Earth exactly 365 days to revolve around the sun, nor does it take 366 days for that matter. The exact number that mathematicians, popes, and politicians have spent millennia trying to reflect in a calendar is 365.24219 days. Notably, the number after the decimal is very close to 0.25, or simply 1/4. Because it's impossible to experience 1/4 of a day every year, humans invented the leap year that occurs nearly every 4 years. More on that in a minute. 2. Julius Caesar didn't invent the leap year, although I never thought he would have. But although the precursor of today's modern calendar bears the name Julius Caesar, he wasn't a great astronomer or a great mathematician. To devise a new calendar that would do away with Rome's extremely confusing system, Caesar called in the bigger brains, Sosigenes of Alexandria. Caesar met this great thinker while in Egypt pursuing a political rival around 48 BCE, so Ptolemy, and while having a fling with Cleopatra. Bound to go wow wow. Before instituting the new calendar on January 1st, 45 BCE, Caesar added 67 days to the previous year, making it the longest year on record. Following this year of confusion, as it was dubbed, the Julian calendar got off to a rocky start because a misunderstanding of Sosigenes' instructions led to a leap year being inserted every 3 years instead of every 4. Luckily, Caesar's nephew and heir Octavian, aka Augustus, corrected the mistake during his reign as emperor. 3. Technically, leap years don't happen every 4 years. If Western society still ran on the Julian calendar, a leap year would occur every 4 years like clockwork, but it doesn't. While Sosigenes' creation was a major calendrical leap forward, The Julian calendar was ever so slightly longer than the actual solar year, 365.24219 days, although a minuscule difference. This led to the calendar drifting off from solar reality by 11 minutes per year. By the 16th century, the Julian calendar was a full 10 days behind where it had been in 325 CE when the Council of Nicaea fixed the date of Easter in relation to the spring equinox. The situation seriously hissed Pope Gregory XIII. Yet, much like Caesar, Gregory XIII wasn't an expert with numbers, so he relied on the work of Italian mathematician Aloysius Lillis, as well as Christopher Clavius, a German mathematician, to finally settle the whole calendar thing once and for all. Their innovation essentially boiled down to this: if a year is divisible by 100 but not by 400, the leap year is skipped. This means that while the year 2000 was a leap year, being divisible by both 100 and 400, the years 1700, 1800, and 1900 were not leap years, and the leap year will also be skipped in the year 2100. The fact that that's less than 75 years away is baffling to me. Anyway, I digress. This edged the number south of 365.25 days just enough that this newly minted Gregorian calendar, which we use today, was much more accurate than its Roman predecessor. 4. The modern leap year calendar still isn't perfect, obviously. Even after 2,000 years of tweaking, today's calendar still isn't perfect. It takes 24219 extra day to travel around the sun, but the Gregorian calendar is currently 365.2425 days long. Much closer to solar reality than previous calendars, but not 100% accurate. This means that the Gregorian calendar will shift one day every 3,236 years. So in the year 4818, humans, AI hybrids, world-conquering aliens, or whatever happens to be living on the planet at that time, will have a tough calendrical decision to make. If they haven't made one already, I don't know. 5 is that leap seconds do exist. In the past 50 years, 27 leap seconds have been added to time because the world doesn't rotate at a uniform rate. Earthquakes, volcanoes, tidal forces, and even wind patterns can temporarily affect the length of a day. And as these oddball rotations add up, scientists eventually have to add an extra second by having the clock strike 23:59:60 before turning over to a new day. These extra seconds can wreak havoc on satellites, airlines, tech companies, and financial systems that rely on extremely precise timekeeping. In 2015, for example, global markets halted trading to avoid any weirdness when a leap second was added on June 30th. Because of this temporal disruption, the scientific community agreed to end the practice of adding, or in extreme cases, possibly subtracting seconds by 2035, 9 years from now. It remains to be seen if a new type of time-altering practice will take its place. 6. Only around 5 million people in the world have a leap day birthday. The odds of being born on a leap day are pretty small, 1 in 1,461. However, those odds aren't nil, and about 5 million people have the distinction of having a birthday that only exists every 4 years, and they're known as leapers, leaplings, and leapsters. These people usually celebrate their birthdays on either February 28th or March 1st in non-leap years. I think I would go with March 1st because that makes more sense. One of the most curious cases of a leap day birthday concerns the Irish-British Keogh family. The grandfather Peter Anthony was born on the leap day in 1940, but his son Peter was born on leap day 1964, and Peter's daughter Bethany was also born on a leap day 1996. Luckily, the Keogh family doesn't hail from Scotland, a region that traditionally believes that someone born on a leap day will live a life of untold suffering. 7. Some of the sexiest traditions surround leap years throughout history. Every leap year, Ireland observes a strange tradition known as Bachelor's Day, in which women are encouraged to propose to men. That was a movie called Leap Year. I forget who was in it. While this practice is most lighthearted and harmless, for years the US celebrated a similar gender swap tradition that only laid bare the inherent inequalities between men and women in America. On February 29th, women held jobs usually reserved for men, such as posts on a normally all-male municipal town boards, and advertisements painted Leap Day as a moment of overly aggressive lovesick women could use their 24 hours of power to entrap unmarried men. God forbid. This was in stark contrast to other countries, such as in Greece, that considered marriages held on Leap Day to be bad luck. Although this gender swap tradition dates back to the late 1700s, the practice slowly faded as marriages became more egalitarian in the 1970s and onwards. And 8. A town in Texas calls itself the leap year capital of the world. Not all leap year traditions are mired in the bad ideas of a bygone era. Boldly declaring themselves the leap year capital of the world, Anthony, Texas celebrates Leap Day with a 3-day festival that begins with an exclusive Leap Day celebration for Leap Day babies on February 29th. That's followed up with 2 days of music, food, and fun for the entire family at Anthony Municipal Park. The West Texas tradition began back in 1988. Mary Ann Brown and her neighbor Bertie Lewis, both born on a leap day, took the idea for a festival to the small town's Chamber of Commerce, which eventually gave the go-ahead and initially sponsored the event as well. Today, people from around the world travel to the town to celebrate with fellow leaplings. That is like the cutest word. Those facts about leap years were from Interesting Facts at interestingfacts.com. If you have some interesting facts that you would like to share, send me an email, detoursandarchaeology at gmail.com. Write a comment on this, a comment on my website, or just hit the contact button in my website. Whichever way you want to do it. Just make sure that it is true. I will be fact checking. Next week will be another Stargate SG-1 Gold versus Mythology episode. This time it's going to be on Osiris and Isis, who appear together in one episode, and Isis is unfortunately dead already. But I will be going more into their mythology. So if that is of interest to you, come back in 3 more weeks for another deep dive into Egyptian gods and goddesses and the pop culture incarnations of evil.
And in the future, coming down the pipe, I will regale you with some history about Portugal and its changing history of the Art Nouveau movement. It seems a lot older than actual Art Nouveau. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep taking those detours. Thanks.